Croeso I benod 2 o Garddio Aberystwyth, y podlediad lle ni'n cwrdd â phobl sy'n tyfu bwyd a gwarchod byd natur o gwmpas y dre. Welcome to episode 2 of our podcast, Garddio Aberystwyth, where we meet people who are growing food and protecting nature around the town. Today we're at the World War II allotment on Penglais Hill. Behind Pentre Jane Morgan, the student village, is a big field, and within that a rectangular plot has been fenced off. Inside, half a dozen people are working on their hands and knees among rows of vegetables. I invited some of them to take a break and explain the project to me.
Okay, hi, my name is Siân Nicholas and I'm a Professor of Modern British History at Aberystwyth University, and I'm project lead for the Aberystwyth World War II allotment here at Penglais. Essentially, we're trying to recreate a Second World War allotment back garden as per the instructions that were sent round by the Ministry of Agriculture in 1942, and we're trying to follow as far as possible the planning grid that they offer, because they give it in amazing detail, and we're trying to give volunteers the experience of gardening in a different time, but also the opportunity to obviously grow their own food and contribute food to the community.
I'm Larry Phillips. I'm a PhD student in the Geography department at Aberystwyth University. I've only been coming here for a few weeks, having first attended an open day that was a couple of months ago now, and just being amazed really. I didn't know it was here.
My name is Diana Valencia Duarte. I am a new lecturer in the Department of History. I am in charge of a new module on environmental history of Latin America and the Caribbean. So I'm highly interested in the ecological relations between culture and nature.
My name's Pete Kingston. I have a background in community work. Specifically, my last job was around supporting people to be more active, and gardening is just a really great way to do activity at your own pace.
I'm really struck by how much community gardens have changed since the 1940s.
Well, one of the things people often notice is everything's in rows, and nowadays with much more kind of companion gardening and gardening in blocks, some people find the rows look a bit old-fashioned, I suppose. But even if you look at their plans, then there was a lot of intercropping and things like that. So and the space is quite big, so rows make it actually a bit easier to hoe and things like that. You can kind of see the point.
And what have you been doing this afternoon?
Just weeding at the minute. There has been an awful lot of weeding to be done. This area was just sheep field before, so I've spent several weeks digging up lots of dock leaves and grass and all sorts. We have done a little bit of planting. I've planted some dwarf peas and beans, but at the minute it has been very sort of weeding heavy.
Just here we've got some runner beans, which were planted actually as seeds by the Ysgol St Paddens year 1. Which we're really pleased to have their support there. We've got some broad beans, although they're a little bit stunted because of the dry weather. Then we've got quite a lot of onions, which we're intercropping with lettuce, and moving on to dwarf beans, dwarf French beans and dwarf peas. We've got another block with potatoes and carrots, and another block with brassicas.
In keeping with historical accuracy, they've been growing old varieties of some vegetables, thanks to a donation from the Heritage Seed Library at Garden Organic.
3 of our runner bean types are heritage types, and the dwarf beans. So there's a Scott bean, I know, there's a Booker runner bean, we've got some George Richardson lettuce, and some other things. We've been really grateful for the help.
Recreating World War II gardening practices in the 21st century brings some very interesting contradictions.
We've got a bit of a dilemma, because wartime gardening was supposed to be as efficient as possible, and so they would use the most up-to-date crop seeds they could find. They would also use chemicals quite a lot, so we're actually sort of splitting the difference and trying to do it organically as possible, looking forward, while looking at the other ways they plant their crops, if you like, looking backwards. So we feel it's quite important to be growing organically, using heritage seed varieties wherever possible, because they're particularly suited to small gardens like this, and we're not using chemicals, especially not the chemicals they used during the Second World War, which were almost have almost invariably been banned now. I keep finding Second World War gardening books recommending nicotine spray, which I don't think we would inflict on anybody, even if we could find it, which we can't.
We're trying to follow the recommendations given by the government at that time. So if you have a space sort of this size and you want a complete set of products to have a decent meal and the amount of calories and energy and nutrients that a human being requires, you need to plant this and this and this. And according to the plant cycles and the seasons and those nutritional requirements, these are like their recommendations. So there's some sort of schedule or a calendar per year, what the government used to say, shoulder, things like that. So that's what we're trying to do right now, following those patterns and those recommendations, but also trying to comply with current regulations, and that's where the anachronism appears.
So much for the history. This is also a present-day community garden, and I asked Siân to tell us a bit more about who comes and what they get out of it.
We've got members of staff, we've got students, undergrads and postgrads, we've got some members of the community as well who come, and we have a couple of volunteer sessions during the week, but a lot of people come in their own time as well, just to do a bit of digging and hoeing. I think people find it quite therapeutic being outdoors, take a break. There's always something to do, and all volunteers get to take veg home. This is the second year we're running this. Last summer we gave quite a lot to the Aber Food Surplus and also to the St Paul's Methodist pay-as-you-go lunch initiative. So we're really happy to be able to do that as well.
As a PhD student, I spend a lot of time at a screen and in my brain. So coming to the garden has been great for switching my brain off for a little bit, or at least putting it in a different mode, and getting into my body more. And it's been lovely to meet other people as well. I think our lives really are so much more enriched by those random encounters that we have with other people and with rabbits that jump over the fence when you're not expecting them.
I really like the manual work and the direct contact with the land. In my research, I also work with contemporary peasantry in Latin America and the Global South. So I appreciate that agricultural practices where you think about nature in a different way and you have a close relation with your plants, with your animals, and you appreciate, I don't like the word service, but the service that they offer, not just for food, also for the company, for the joy of nature, it's kind of a spiritual bond with the land and with other beings that grow, a feeling of caring for those things, like not just producing and selling, but actually to provide an act of care with nature, to ask permission to do this and to be grateful when they provide for you. And it feels great when you have your first, your tomatoes or your apples, and you can do something with them and they feel like the most delicious fruit ever, just because you have grown them with love. So to me it has always been special.
We used to live in Exeter and we had an allotment which we got in 2019, I think. So that was sort of our escape through the lockdown years. Started off knowing very little about what we were doing. Yeah, and just through talking to people and reading things, just started to, build plans of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. I read somewhere, I can't remember where, but one of the most sort of radical anti-capitalist acts you can make is to grow food yourself and save the seeds and, grow heritage varieties. So that always appeals to me. But aside from that, it's just really quite, wholesome in sustaining something that in turn will sustain you. That there's this sort of cycle of giving and caring in working alongside people. It brings people together.
My PhD has been looking at wellbeing in the outdoors, particularly in woodlands, and learning new skills and spending time with other people in woodlands. So there is an awful lot of overlap between that and the gardening project. Therapeutic horticulture, I think, has huge potential really for people that otherwise wouldn't usually get into gardening. Often there's a circuitous route through from people who have had mental health problems and various struggles in life that turn to growing for all sorts of different reasons.
Trying to talk to people is often quite charged and quite difficult, and that sort of working shoulder to shoulder on something similar just eases that. There's no need to talk, but people can talk when they want to talk, and that, like, just having a space for people to be together, working on something common, really does build stronger community ties.
I really enjoy different ways to get in contact with history. Of course, that there are documentaries and books and studies, papers, but getting the chance to reenact it and live it is always like a very enjoyable and fun way to learn about how things worked in the past.
The World War II allotment always welcomes new volunteers, and they have exciting new plans for Heritage Food Orchard coming soon. So get in touch with Siân Nicholas if you'd like to join in. Heritage seeds are available from Garden Organic, as well as lots of information on organic gardening methods. Diolch am wrando. Thank you for listening.